give me 2, so I don't even know. I'll just give it to her.
He really is more famous than John Wayne.
Yeah, but we never met him.
Yeah.
I met him.
Yeah.
Rest assured.
Maybe you should bring her here to introduce her. Yes.
Yep. Okay. So when the
School principal or something like that? No? The first guy sees you that looks like you were as always, so doesn't seem anything like I remember it way back in the day, 50 years ago. They picked the perfect spot.
Where do you want it, please? The bench?
Thank you, Justin.
give the young kids a better understanding of what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I do explain.
What the young kids understand, not
Hi.
it surprised me quite a bit as a whole. Girls that they coming up with me and came to the firehouse with their Girl Scouts. So that surprised me to say, wow, they just pay attention to the fire.
Right.
So when you do all the talking, I can see where that's how you
I said it's those.
you dance in style.
Right. I was just saying, I saw you on a light train, which is really not a good idea. You didn't think you could do it. Oh, okay.
Well, now I'm saying good morning.
Oh, okay. Nice enough to say. I said, "Why not?" I don't want anyone. So, like I said, we're just talking about
Just stay there for a second.
Oh, did we do it? Oh, that's right. And that's where the first night I did it. Came down.
I don't know where Andrew is.
Right. And that's anytime. Right.
Allie, come.
you want to come out here, you can too.
In front of the bench or
You can, right here in front, whatever you want to do. Yeah, would you? And then we started as soon as you come back. We're gonna start in 5 minutes, okay?
Where do you want me to sit? Over here?
Yeah, over there's good. Is Lisa here? Elisa? Pilates?
She is.
Where is she? Yeah, good. Jim's here. You guys are right there. Okay. Jim, we good? Are we good? Okay. Good afternoon. Check, check. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the entire West Islip High School faculty and staff, we want to welcome everyone to the Tom Compitello Lending Library Dedication Ceremony. At this time, I'd ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At the conclusion of the Pledge of Allegiance, please remain standing for the singing of our Star Spangled Banner, performed by the West Islip Chorale under the direction of Mrs. Senator. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tony, we got a delivery coming around.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to introduce our honored guests. From our Board of Education, Mrs. Debbie Brown, Vice President. Trustees, Mr. Peter McCann, Mrs. Christina Marks, Ms. Grace Kelly, and Mr. Quinn Bedell. Please give them a round of applause. From our district administration, Dr. Paul Romanelli, Superintendent of Schools, Ms. Dawn Morrison, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Mrs. Elise Pilati, our Assistant Superintendent for Business, and Mr. James Cameron, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Please give them a round of applause. We are also honored to have a very special guest with us, is Mr. Compitello's sister-in-law, Jerry Compitello. Also with us today are veterans from the local West Islip American Legion Post. We are honored to have Petty Officer Second Class Sean Ryan, U.S. Navy. Private Kevin Colmish, U.S. Army. Petty Officer Greg Buck, U.S. Navy, and he's also the commander of the American Legion. And last, we have Lieutenant Lawrence Donahue, U.S. Marines. Let's give them a round of applause. Gentlemen, it is our honor for you to join us at this dedication ceremony. We are honored to live in the same community as you, and we thank you for your service to our country. Let's give them a big round of applause. I also want to recognize Mr. Burns, our technology teacher, with his two students, Joseph Pekoski and Aiden Sapoff, who have built, designed, and will be unveiling the lending library later in the ceremony. Let's give them a round of applause. Today we gather in honor of the legacy of Mr. Tom Compitello, a man who defined a life well lived through his unwavering dedication to service. Tom served our nation with honor, protecting the freedoms and democratic values that we hold dear. But his education did not stop there. He brought the same passion for service to the students and families of West Islip. Tom made a profound impact as a teacher, guiding countless students not only to achieve academically, but to embrace the values of hard work and perseverance. I had the privilege of meeting Tom during his time as a leave replacement teacher at Beach Street Middle School. I saw firsthand the connections he built with students and staff alike. He had a unique way of making everyone feel valued. Whether it was checking in on the clerical staff or thanking our custodians for their work, Tom was always intentional in showing appreciation and building a sense of community. In the classroom, Tom was truly one of a kind. Every student knew that he was there to support their growth, not just as learners, but as individuals. His leadership extended beyond the classroom as a trustee of the Board of Education, where his vision helped to ensure that West Islip remained a place where students can thrive. As we dedicate this lending library in his honor, we celebrate Tom's love for learning and his belief in the power of literacy. Thank you for coming to today's ceremony to celebrate the remarkable man who gives so much to all of us. Let's continue to live by example Tom set, a life dedicated to service, community, and making a difference. Thank you. And at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Paul Romanelli to say a few words on Tom's behalf.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell. And let's also hear it for the student performing groups that have played already today. Amazing job. So just a few quick words. Mr. Compitello was on the Board of Education and worked with the board that hired me as superintendent of the school district. And I think on a daily basis about, the honor and the privilege that I've had to work in this role in the West Islip School District. And it's because of people like Tom who were here before, way before I was. I actually am wearing one of Tom's ties today, and I wear it regularly. And when I do get up in the morning and put this tie on, it reminds me of a few things. You know, I think it's so fitting that this is taking place the day after Veterans Day, as we're honoring our veterans, because Tom was a patriot, and that's one element of this tie right here. He was also dedicated to service, as Mr. O'Farrell mentioned. He was not only part of our armed forces, but he was also a public servant as an educator as well. And that's the life that he really lived. And for anyone that knew Tom, you knew that he lived by a code, and it was really that he was going to lead with kindness, but he was also going to tell you exactly what he thought when you were out of line, and try to impart some knowledge to you as well when he needed to. And I think that just the level of service that he's shown to this district fits perfectly with this lending library. So I really do applaud the students and staff that put this all together, and just want to leave just with remembering that code that Tom lived by, and that every time that we're here in this courtyard and we see this lending library, we're reminded of the life that Tom shared with all of us. So I'm honored to be here in West Islip because of people like Tom who came before me, and thank everyone for being here today.
And as you know, Tom was a commander in the U.S. Navy, and to honor him, we have our high school wind ensemble under the direction of Jim Crace, who will perform Anchors Away. Let's give him a big round of applause. Next, to give a testimonial of Mr. Compitello's life and legacy, I'm proud to introduce Mr. Murphy, a longtime colleague of Mr. Compitello.
Good afternoon, everybody. I recognize that it's kind of an odd setting here. Most of the people in the courtyard right now have no idea who the individual is that we're discussing, other than, of course, the staff. So my comments that I prepared were really geared with that in mind. I thought it would be appropriate to give some sort of insight, a little bit of context, a little bit of background on the type of person that Tom Compitello was. And it is a pleasure to be able to do so. Tom was born and raised right here in West Islip. He grew up on a street just a couple blocks away behind the high school. He attended the schools of West Islip, and he ultimately did graduate West Islip High School in the year of 1969. 1969 was a very difficult time in the life of our nation. We were at probably the worst part of the Vietnam War at that time, and that war divided our country tremendously. People felt very strongly one way or the other about that war. There were many people actively protesting it. It was without a doubt the most unpopular war of our history. People protested against the draft of young males, only 18 years of age, being forced to go over to Vietnam. People were protesting against the government in general and the war itself. And maybe one of the ways that some of you might be aware of was an event that summer of 1969 in the middle of August called the Woodstock Music Festival. Perhaps some of you have heard about that through your parents or grandparents, or maybe you just are really into music and you know about it, but that was the first of its kind at the time to have this days-long music festival from bands all around the country and the world in one place. And many of those bands use that platform to also voice their issues with the Vietnam War. And most of the people that attended that were what you probably have heard referred to as the hippies, or the counterculture, the way that they dressed and the way they grew their hair, very rebellious in spirit. It was right around that time that that event was taking place, in the middle of August of 1969, that Tom got himself a nice fresh crew cut. He knew which side he stood on, and he went down to attend college in Charleston, South Carolina, at a place called the Citadel. If you're not familiar, the Citadel is a military college. It provides a traditional education, but more military in style, and their goal is to prepare leaders for tomorrow. You don't necessarily have to go into the military when you attend the Citadel. Many of them do, but many do not. They just prepare people to be leaders in whatever field they choose to go into after they are at the Citadel. And they put a very special emphasis on developing the character of those young people through 3 core values. And Tom talked about those values the entire time I knew him: honor, duty, and respect. It left quite an impression on him. And when he graduated the Citadel, the Vietnam War was winding down, actually, but he made the decision that he was going to enter the United States Navy. About the only part of the war that he participated in was something called Operation End Sweep at the end of the war, where they were clearing the underwater mines off the coast of Vietnam. But he went on to spend 22 years in the United States Navy, and he rose to the rank of lieutenant commander. After 22 years in the Navy, he was involved in a pretty bad in-service accident. He was in really bad shape. It required about 18 months in a naval hospital and then an additional 18 months in rehab. He had metal placed into all 4 of his limbs, including other parts of his body. One of the nicknames we had for him in that regard, we used to call him the Tin Man. He could set off a metal detector anywhere. He had to learn the basic functions of life during those 18 months of rehab, including how to walk again and how to speak again. And when he was all done with that experience, Tom probably could have just been discharged and taken disability for the rest of his life. However, instead, he decided to channel his energies into something meaningful and purposeful. He decided to go to school to become a history teacher, and after serving his country for 22 years, Tom returned to the community that raised him, and he became a teacher right here at the West Islip High School, a history teacher here at the high school. And West Islip and all the students that he encountered are all the better for it. Tom was, without a doubt, one of the most sincere, modest, generous, genuine gentlemen you could ever meet. And everybody that came in contact with him knows this and knows it well. For 20 years, Tom was an iconic figure here at the high school. His students were treated to a unique perspective of American history from a man that had literally seen the entire world. In 2017, after 20 years of teaching here, Tom decided it was time to step down and retire. However, he still had a yearning for more public service, and he ultimately decided to run for the Board of Education. For the young people here that are not entirely familiar, in addition to the superintendent, the Board of Education establishes and sets policies for the district and basically controls every aspect of everything that goes on here in the schools. I remember asking Tom, after all these years, what motivated him to do it. And he was very, very clear about what it was, and it was very simple. He just wanted to help steer board policies in the best interests of the students and the educators that worked with him. Nothing more than that. And that's what Tom was doing right up until January of 2023 last year, when he unexpectedly lost his life. It was a huge, huge blow for everybody in the school community. So to sum it all up, I'll just put it to you this way. Tom devoted almost half a century to public service, both by way of serving his country and his community. He always put other people before himself, and he did it all with a graceful sense of humor. Tom was the personification of those values that were instilled in him in his days at the Citadel: honor, duty, and respect. He's sorely missed. I'm going to introduce next to you Mr. James Gilmartin, the director of the Social Studies Department, now to more specifically explain to you how we intend to honor Tom's legacy this afternoon. Thank you.
Before Mr. Gilmartin gets up, I just wanted to make one more comment. As I said in my previous remarks, that Tom Compitello came to Beach Street after he retired for a 3-month leave replacement. We had to teach our maternity leave. And in that 3 months, he made deep impact with the 7th grade students that he was teaching. And one of those students that he had, he truly inspired, he mentored, and he led by example. And one of that student is with us today, and he's here as a representative and an example of Tom's legacy as he dedicates service to the West Islip Fire Department, and also at the age of 18 ran for the board and became probably one of the youngest trustees of the Board of Education. That is Mr. Quinn Bedell. Please give him a round of applause. And we thank Mr. Bedell and the West Islip Fire Department for joining us in honoring Tom's legacy. And at this time, I'll bring up Mr. Gilmartin.
I'd also like to echo thanks to our students, Mr. Burns, for thinking of Mr. Compitello. I have a unique relationship with Tom in terms of we work together. He used to call me boss at one point, and then I called him boss at one point. And one of the things that we did when he retired was that we used to share books back and forth. And whenever I was reading a book, I would always say, this is a book that Comp would want. And we would give it back and forth. And this is the last book that we exchanged far too early about the bomber mafia in World War II. And I'd like it to be the first book that we dedicate, because what we did learn was that in reading, we can kind of share stories, and we would meet up and talk about it. So not only was it a way to become educated, but also to maintain a friendship as he had retired. So this is this will be our first book that we dedicate, and I hope someone enjoys it. Thank you.
And at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Burns and his 2 students who designed and built our lending library to do the official unveiling of the Tom Compitello Lending Library at West Islip High School. Gentlemen. So Joseph, you ready? We're going to do a countdown of 3, 2, 1. Then Joseph will cut the ribbon, and we will pull and unveil the lending library. So ready? 3, 2, 1. And as you know, the idea of a lending library is giving the gift of literacy and sharing stories. So when you come to have a great book that you want someone else to read, you put it in, and also in there's the small treasures for you to take and read. So at this time, I'd like Mr. Gilmartin to dedicate the first book to the Tom Compitello Lending Library. And again, I just want to thank everyone for coming. Tom's legacy will live on and on through this lending library. His name will be attached to it. It's a good way to exchange knowledge, remember our values as a country, and remembering a life well lived is one dedicated to service and giving to others. Thank you for coming. Have a great afternoon. And always remember Tom Compitello. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. So our social studies teachers, please bring your classes back. We thank you for participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing it.
Thank you, Kevin. And Jim? You like it? There's a lot to do today. Thank you. Thank you.